Tonight on NewsCenter, President Park meets with the members of the presidential committee tasked with preparing for Korean reunification, what she said and why the issue of history was brought up. Leaders of Seoul and Tokyo agreed to speed up talks on resolving the issue of Japan's wartime sex slavery earlier this week, but that agreement isn't getting followed up too well. And what's keeping hundreds of Koreans on the streets for days, sleeping on the curb, waiting in line? Find out on NewsCenter. It's Thursday, November 5th, 2015. Good evening to our viewers in Korea and hello to those around the world. I'm Moon Conn-young. At the nation's top office, President Park met with the preparatory committee for unification, the sixth of its kind, earlier this Thursday. Well, dominating the talks were the usual importance of cross-border relations and addressing Pyongyang's humanitarian issues, but there was also a new agenda brought up during the meeting. For more on what was discussed at today's session, our presidential office correspondent Hwang Sang-hee joins us from Cheongwade. Now, Sang-hee, the key agenda items of the meeting today.
Conn-young, today's meeting was aimed at reviewing the progress made in unification preparation over the past year. President Park opened the session by saying that the two Koreas must work on expanding the inter-Korean channel that was secured through their landmark agreement reached in August. But the meeting was also an opportunity to touch upon the ongoing history textbook controversy in the nation, with the president stressing that a solid sense of history is essential for reunification.
통일이 되어도 우리의 정신은 큰 혼란을 겪게 되고 중심을 잡지 못하는, 그래서 결국 사상적으로 지배를 받게 되는 그런 기막힌 상황이 발생할 수도 있을 것입니다.
The comment comes as the government is preparing to retake control over history textbook publishing for secondary schools starting in 2017. The move has sparked controversy across the nation. The government says the move will eliminate what it calls left-leaning content in existing books, while some call it a challenge to democracy. President Park also revealed plans to increase government support for inter-Korean people-to-people exchanges in areas like culture, sports, and history. She said resolving Pyongyang's humanitarian issue and building infrastructure in the north is vital for bringing the Koreas together.
남북 교류 협력 사무소를 설치하고 이를 통해서 보건 의료라든가 재난 안전, 지하 자원을 비롯해서 남북 모두에게 이익이 되는 분야로 협력을 확대해 나가기를 기대합니다.
The president also said reunification cannot be achieved by Seoul's solitary efforts. She said the support of not only countries like the United States and China, but also European and Southeast Asian nations with diplomatic ties with the North is vital. And there was also a message for North Korea. President Park urged Pyongyang to return to the long-stalled six-party nuclear talks and to abide by its earlier commitments with the international community. To quote the president, she said true peace on the Korean peninsula can only be achieved when the North Korean nuclear issue is resolved. Conn-young?
Sang-hee, thank you for that. Our Hwang Sang-hee from the nation's presidential office of Cheongwade. The nation's parliament remained paralyzed for the fourth straight day today as the rival parties continue to play the blame game over who's responsible for the current deadlock. Well, the halt stemming from the government's decision to author and publish the nation's history textbooks for middle and high schools. Our parliamentary correspondent Ji Myung-gil is at the National Assembly. Now, Myung-gil, it's hard to say when things will start moving again there.
Good evening, Conn-young. The ruling Centre Party has sent a warning to the opposition bloc, which is currently boycotting parliamentary proceedings. Here's what the ruling party chief had to say.
This is the last regular session of the 19th National Assembly, and there's a lot to do. It's all right for Chairman Moon Jae-in to hold press conferences, file lawsuits and hold rallies, but he should remember that the people are watching.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party said it is appalled by the remarks. At a party meeting on Thursday, party chair Moon Jae-in said President Park Geun-hye and the ruling bloc were the ones responsible for paralyzing parliamentary affairs and vowed a relentless fight on the textbook issue.
We will do our best to block the government's decision to reintroduce state-authored history textbooks. It's not a matter that can be resolved quickly, so our fight will continue for now.
Moon also promised to form coalitions with scholars and civic groups to address the issue and sought to reassure his fellow lawmakers that they are doing the right thing, saying the public is on the same track as a party. But with the rival parties holding firm on their positions, it is unclear when or how parliamentary business will return to normal. Conn-young?
Well, hopefully soon enough. Thank you, Myung-gil, for that. Our Chi Myung-gil from Seoul's National Assembly. Now, Seoul and Tokyo have agreed to address and resolve the issue of Japan's wartime sex slavery at the summit talks held earlier this week. But as Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is making a series of puzzling statements, the Korean government called on Tokyo to make sincere efforts in complying with their agreement. Arirang's Foreign Affairs correspondent Song Ji-sun is following up on that story for us. Ji-sun, so what did the Seoul government say?
Conn-young, it's hard to say what Abe is really thinking about with regard to this sensitive issue, as his words kept changing since he returned to Japan on Monday. Now, Seoul is urging Tokyo to show its sincerity in following through with the agreements they reached in their summit talks. Take a listen.
The wartime sexual slavery issue is not only the core issue for Korea-Japan relations, it's a matter of women's rights. There are only 47 survivors left, with an average age of 89, and no one can argue that the matter needs to be handled with some urgency. We hope Tokyo acts with sincerity, as agreed in the summit talks. That way, it will be beneficial for Japan's future.
The presidential office of Cheong Wa-dae has also called on Tokyo to comply with the agreements reached at the summit on Monday. Japanese media outlets have reported that Abe has backtracked on his pledge at the summit to try to resolve the issue at the earliest possible date through another round of high-level talks on the matter. He reportedly told Liberal Democratic Party leaders Hadakazu Tanigaki that the two countries have different perspectives on how to approach the issue, and reaching an agreement will only get harder if they set a deadline for its resolution. But Abe was later quoted as saying that Tokyo will also try to meet President Park's request to speed things up to make some progress this year, which marks the 50th anniversary of the two countries normalizing diplomatic relations. While Seoul's foreign ministry said a date for the next round of high-level talks hasn't been set yet, both the Korean and Japanese media have reported the talks could be held as early as this month. And if that happens, it will take place here in Seoul, as the last two were held in Tokyo. Back to you, Conn-young.
Well, definitely a race against time, if not too late already. Thank you, Ji-sun. Our Song Ji-sun from Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry. Well, the International Monetary Fund says Korea's per capita GDP will top $30,000 by next year and get very close to that of Japan by 2020. But experts remain wary. Our Park Se-young tells us why.
In 5 years, Korea's GDP per capita will rise to nearly $37,000, drawing close to that of Japan's. According to the IMF's World Economic Outlook database, the nation's per capita GDP will reach $36,750 in 2020, a 31% rise from last year's $27,970. Japan's per capita GDP is forecast to see a 6% rise over the same period to slightly over $38,000. In 2005, the GDP per capita of Japan was nearly 2 times that of Korea's. Last year, Korea's per capita GDP adjusted to purchasing power parity came in at $35,400, close to Japan's $37,500. In 2018, Korea's numbers are forecast to overtake Japan's. The latest figures show Korea is narrowing the economic gap with Japan. Last year, Japan's GDP was $4.6 trillion, 3 times bigger than Korea's. According to the IMF's database, Korea's 2014 GDP of $1.4 trillion will rise to $1.9 trillion in 2020, reducing the gap to 2.4 times. In this year's IMD World Competitiveness Ranking, Korea climbed 1 notch to 25th, while Japan tumbled 6 spots to 27th. Meanwhile, the economic gap between China and Korea is expected to widen from just over 7 times last year to 9 times in 2020. Experts say Korea will have to stay competitive by reforming its industrial structure and developing highly profitable products to ensure it keeps pace with the Japanese and Chinese economies over the next 5 years. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
The Lotte Group recently set up an investment company to support startups launched by the younger generation. The firm is designed to provide initial capital, infrastructure, and mentoring services to startups and raise $88.3 million in investment funds. Now, it's part of a wider trend here in Korea to foster the start of new businesses by younger Koreans. Arirang News' Kim Min-ji joins me in the studio to give us a more in-depth look into this new boom. Min-ji, let's talk about this particular investment company first.
Good evening, Conn-young. Lotte has tentatively called the new investment firm Lotte Accelerator, and its first startup, if you may, is called Honeyspoon. Now, Honeyspoon is subject to receive funding from both Lotte and one of the country's creative economy centers.
Well, Min-ji, for those of us who are not too familiar with this entrepreneurial industry, why don't you explain to us what the difference is between accelerator and an incubator?
Yeah, sure. Accelerators, like the word accelerate an existing company, whereas incubators incubate ideas to create a new business model. Now, so accelerators focus on expanding on a business idea through intense programming, while incubators are more focused on innovation. So let's take a look at how Korea has helped give startups a boost. Feeling hungry? Typically, you could rummage through menu booklets or even a smartphone app to find something to order. But this also implies that you might end up frustrated due to the lack of options, especially since the number of famous eateries that deliver is quite limited. So this company has decided to tackle this particular predicament.
We've joined with more than 800 stores. The customer just makes an order via mobile app, and then our riders pick the food up and deliver it to the customer's doorstep.
And such novel concept of delivery service was made possible by startup accelerators like Fast Track Korea, which help foster startups, as well as support existing ones from start to finish.
Drawing up funding, coming up with ideas, and finding new hires. That's what we do. We work with people who have great ideas, and if they lack something, like marketing or R&D, we help them.
Startups are becoming a more common trend in Korea. The number of new businesses started by people under the age of 30 hit an all-time high of 1,123 in the first quarter of this year. The growth has been on a steady rise since the middle of last year. But the reality is, Korea's startup ecosystem is relatively young compared to that of the US, and many end up closing their doors.
In every aspect, we don't have experience, so everything is difficult. There's a lot of places that offer help for startups, but they don't prove to be very substantial. At accelerators, they give us what we really need.
The government has also made its initiatives to promote startups, promoting support to rise. This accelerator for one holds demo sessions where their participants are given an opportunity to show off their products to attract investment.
So we match them with the global mentors based in all around the world, mostly based in Silicon Valley. Every week we have a teaching session, so each week we'll run sessions based on their service items, for example, UX, UI, marketing, PR, business development, and global expansion.
Experts say that although the Korean startup ecosystem has been improving, more needs to be done.
There are about 2,000 accelerators worldwide and about 20 to 25 in Korea, depending on how you define them. But it's not about the number. The reason Korea looks as if it's behind is because the market itself is small and not enough Korean startups have made inroads overseas.
Experts also say that the government should play a part in fostering and nurturing incubators and accelerators, not just the new businesses themselves, as they are the ones that can provide the customized support that many new businesses are in need of.
Well, Minji, I know that one of President Park's key initiatives for the past few years has been creative economy. And if I'm not wrong, all 17 innovation centers are up and running. Do you have the numbers to back that up?
Yeah, that's right. So far, the centers have supported over 500 small and medium venture companies, attracting $27 million in investment, and it's generated sales of over $15 million so far.
Right, so we're still in the very infant stage, if you will, but like you said, we are making baby steps forward, right?
Definitely so. So perhaps not as much as developed countries, but in Korea, if you have the idea, so long as it's creative, then yes, people can succeed.
Right, and if you are brave enough to fail. All right, Minji, thank you so much for that report today.
Thank you.
The countdown to the U.S. presidential elections have kicked off with just over a year to go till voting day. Our Kwon Jang-ho takes a look at the current frontrunners and what the elections could mean for Korea-U.S. relations.
369 days till voting day. With just over a year to go, the world is still a long way from knowing which candidates will go head-to-head for the top seat at the White House. For the Democrats, it's a likely race between former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Clinton was seen as the obvious frontrunner just a few months ago, but scandals such as the use of the private email server have brought her numbers down. Bernie Sanders is behind in the polls, but his campaign has a grassroots impact, with 77% of campaign funds coming from small donors. In the red corner, it's a little more unclear. Billionaire businessman Donald Trump leads the polls, but with his extreme comments and the lack of a strong GOP support, many still do not see him as a realistic candidate. Neurosurgeon Bill Carson is gaining momentum, but he's known to make controversial comments as well, and question marks remain over his vague policies and leadership potential. Not far behind are Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, and their double-digit poll numbers show that any slip-up from the frontrunners could change the dynamics of the race quickly. All this makes it difficult to pick party frontrunners, and countries around the world with close ties to the US, like Korea, are finding it hard to prepare for an outcome.
I think it's a little too early for us to tell at the moment what is more preferable for South Korea.
A key issue for Korea is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the 12-nation trade pact that Korea is looking to get into. Sanders, Trump, and many of the other candidates have been vocal in their opposition of the treaty, but even that remains uncertain.
President Obama initially suggested that he will renegotiate NAFTA before he was elected to be the president, and he decided not to do that once he was in office. So we'd have to wait and see to how these candidates, if they are elected, how they will push forward with their election promise.
It seems like it's too early now to tell what the future has in store for the US and its partners. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Korea leads the game when it comes to treatment for certain types of cancer, but for chronic diseases like asthma and diabetes, the level is far below the average of other developed economies. The very important numbers regarding health and medical treatment. Our Hwang Ji-hye reports.
The survival rates for cervical and colorectal cancers in Korea are the highest among OECD member nations. According to the OECD's healthcare quality indicators, the 5-year relative survival rate for cervical cancer stands at around 77%, while that for colorectal cancer is at slightly over 70%. The figures compare the survival rate of an ordinary person and that of a cancer patient in a 5-year span. A reading of 100 means the survival rate of a patient is the same with a person who is not suffering from the disease. But the country's success in treating certain types of cancer did not apply for chronic diseases. The hospital admission rate for asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease is at over 310 out of a population of 100,000. That's almost 5 times higher than that of Japan's and far higher than the OECD average. The hospital admission rate for diabetes also stands 2 times higher than the average of OECD member states. A national agency cites the poor initial care of such diseases for the high hospital admission rate. 황지혜, 아리랑 뉴스.
It's surely nice to get your hands on that stunning new designer dress or that pair of killer heels you've wanted for weeks. But how far would you be willing to go to bring that dress or that pair of shoes home? Well, for almost a week now, hundreds of people have been spotted camping out on the streets to become the first ones to lay hands on those high-end brand items. Our Kwon So-ah brings us a glimpse of that fashion craze.
It's 5 a.m. in Myeongdong, one of Seoul's main shopping districts. The chilly weather has not stopped these people who have been in line for days and nights in order to get a hold of their favorite designer items. Those at the very front of the line have been camping out for 6 days. The reason? This SPA store is one of roughly 250 shops in 61 countries where high-end brand Balmain and H&M launched a collection on Thursday.
Actually, the whole idea is good because of I think fashion is for everyone, and actually it has no barrier between like luxury.
Time is money, but not in this case, as the waiting has paid off, with these people getting hold of their favorite designers' items for a fraction of what they would usually have to pay.
This beaded dress required a lot of craftsmanship, which is why it's the most expensive item in the store for a price of $480.
The manager says collaborations between H&M and high-end labels began 6 years ago in Korea, and interest in this type of projects is becoming more popular in the country.
When I came here last year for the Alexander Wang collection, I went back home because I couldn't handle the waiting. But this time, I'm not leaving.
The 21-year-old student added he thought it would be a tough fight.
I was lucky. I got everything I wanted. I bought a rider jacket, biker jeans, and a hoodie.
What is it about the craze? Experts say it has a lot to do with the Korean public's obsession with high-end brands.
Buying items by luxury brands is an indicator of a person's social status in Korea, and the trend is intensifying as our society is becoming more and more insecure.
This insecurity, according to the professor, has been produced in part by Korea's once rapid industrial growth and which was overtaken by the current fast economic slowdown. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
The three-story Seokgacha Pagoda is one of Korea's oldest stone relics. The 1,300-year-old stone pagoda has been under restoration for over 3 years now. But we have some good news. That process is near completion, and the beloved pagoda will be open to the public early next year. It's often said that art restoration is a work of art itself. Our Kim Ji-yeon has more on this meticulous process.
Restoring a 1,300-year-old stone pagoda that weighs 3.5 tons has to be done extremely carefully. Even the slightest turn towards the wrong angle can be dangerous. This 3-story stone pagoda called Seokgacha belongs at the heart of the cultural relic of Bulguksa Temple in Gyeongju.
I've been to several restoration projects, but this is by far the largest. I'm honored to be here for this historic moment.
The 10.5-meter-high Seokgacha, built during the Silla dynasty in the 751 BC, is currently designated as the country's 21st national treasure. In September 2012, the pagoda was dismantled for the restoration project after fractures were detected. Instead of regular metal, titanium was used to fill the crevices, while earth mixed with natural minerals was pumped into the interior. It marks the first time the pagoda has been restored since it was partially reconstructed in the mid-1960s after it was damaged in an attempted theft.
This project will make it possible for the national treasure to be preserved for thousands more years.
The researcher says the restored Seokgacha stone pagoda will be unveiled to the public in January. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
In Korea, electronic payments using those plastic cards and financial technology or fintech have become so common that living without cash is not a problem at all. In this very special report, our Lee Soo-eun brings us her experience of a cashless society.
Cash does an average Korean carry? We went to Myeongdong in downtown Seoul to ask around.
거짓말 없는데.
현금 얼마 안 갖고 다니지? I have 3,000 won and I have cards. So if I need cash, I can just withdraw some.
Then how far in a day can you get through without cash? Well, I don't need any when I hop on the bus or get my morning coffee. A credit card, debit card, or fintech app usually does the job, even for something costing as little as 1,000 won. Most people in Korea are used to it.
Since I've came out, I've already paid for a couple of things, moved around here and there too. But not once did I have to pay for something in cash. In fact, it's rare to find places that require cash payments.
Non-cash payments have become more commonplace as more people realize the convenience and time saved by not carrying or having to count change, as well as the hygienic benefit of reducing contact with ever-circulating cash.
Card payments are convenient. When I get cash, it takes a lot of time to make change, and even more if I have to print out cash receipts. Card payments are easy and simple, especially when I'm busy.
Electronic payments amounted to 83% of all transactions made in Korea last year.
Since the early 2000s, non-cash payments jumped from around 90 trillion US dollars to 450 trillion. Korea's electronic payment network is well equipped compared to other developed countries, and it's already quite a convenient system.
Preference of electronic payment methods brings about other social phenomena, like the development of the market for streamlined card wallets and smartphone cases with card pockets.
Card or mobile payments make consumption more efficient. It's not just about shopping. There are also quick pay systems like high pass on highways and public transit cards. In the bigger picture, diversification of transaction methods makes the economy more efficient.
Paying with cards and mobile phones also prevents cash-related crimes such as theft, bribery, and tax evasion. It even works to limit underground economic activities because unlike cash, electronic payments leave a record. However, there still remain businesses which only accept cash, causing a bit of friction between shop owners and customers.
Many people pay with cards these days. Our profits are lower because of card transaction fees, but there's nothing I can do about it.
The current law charges business owners 1.5% of each transaction as fees to card companies, equivalent to 1,500 won for every 100,000.
From a shop owner's perspective, card transaction fees are a bit high. I wish they could be lowered a bit. There's so many types of cards out there and a lot of people use them. I really feel like the transaction fees are excessive.
In response, the Korean government announced plans to lower credit card transaction fees imposed on business owners by 0.7% for those who make less than roughly $265,000 US dollars in annual sales. But this doesn't seem enough for some. Electronic payment methods are fast developing in Korea, but there are limitations as some entities profit while others incur losses. And fine-tuning measures are necessary to make the electronic payment system accessible and convenient for all parties involved. Lee Soo-eun, Arirang News.
The details of one of the most ambitious free trade deals in history have been released. For more on that, Bruce Harrison joins us now in the studio. Now, Bruce, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, now we're learning that this would free up to 40% of the commerce in the world economy.
Yeah, hello, Conn-young. It's a massive deal. And now the governments have the task, the governments of the 12 countries that agreed to the deal have to decide if they want to approve it after sifting through roughly 2,000 pages.
Well, U.S. President Barack Obama, he is the main driver behind this TPP. He himself is struggling to gain support amongst the U.S. lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, right?
Even though Mr. Obama says this deal could allow the U.S. to challenge China's economic rise and growing political influence It appears there are more skeptics than supporters in Congress. In the U.S. and other Pacific Rim countries reviewing the deal, it's really going to come down to what's in the fine print. For example, details on local content thresholds for the auto industry are unclear, and U.S. footwear importers are also waiting to see how long duties would remain in place. The Hill reports the White House has its work cut out. It'll need to assure Democrats that chapters on labor and environment are the strongest ever negotiated, and the deal won't lead to job losses like previous agreements. Now, factory and export economies like Malaysia and Vietnam would benefit largely from the deal due to the perks that would be created by tariff elimination. Just getting to this point has been rocky as well. Transparency advocates have been angry because the details were largely kept secret despite the deal's massive implications. Myanmar's purported first free and fair election in 25 years may not be that fair. Opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi says campaign rules are being broken. She said there have been irregularities in advance voting, fraud, and intimidation. Suu Kyi's NLD party is expected to do well in the election, but the Constitution bans her from becoming president if her party wins. She said she'd lead anyway.
I've not said we're going to win. I've said if we are win and the NLD forms a government, I will be above the president. It's a very simple message.
According to the BBC, Suu Kyi said there's nothing in the Constitution that prevents this, although a clause does bar her, or candidates rather, with foreign spouses or children. She has 2 sons who hold British passports. Suu Kyi's NLD party won a massive victory in 1990, but the junta annulled the result. At that time, she was already under house arrest.
Well, in other news, Bruce, the Maldives has declared a state of emergency because of a political upheaval. Now, this was apparently prompted by an assassination attempt on the president. Yeah, what we know right now, a suspected assassination attempt on President Abdullah Yameen. Right, and the U.S. says the evidence is sketchy and that, some believe the president is trying to squelch unrest against his own leadership. Much of the international community is pretty upset with Yameen's government right now. Through the state of emergency, they suspended, or rather his government suspended, all basic rights of citizens. The Guardian reports the move also gives security forces the power to arrest suspects before an anti-government rally scheduled later this week. Now, Yameen's government said it only declared the state of emergency over a threat to citizens' safety and national security after the suspected bomb blast. Police also reportedly found weapons Yameen's opposition stashed away. The U.S. has demanded the measures be lifted and called for an end to politically motivated prosecutions and detentions. It was specifically referring to the detention of former President Mohamed Nasheed. Well, Bruce, the measure is expected to stay in effect for 30 days, right? It's a long time for your constitutional rights to be taken away, stripped by government, but with the pressure from the international community, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Right, and Maldives is a favorite vacation destination for Koreans, and the Korean government has in fact given out an announcement on Korean nationals in the Maldives to be careful and to stay indoors as much as possible. Exactly. At a time like this, I mean, that may be the best move. All right. Well, Bruce, thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, Conn-young. Well, it was another hazy day here in Seoul with a dust advisory issued for the metropolitan area. For the latest in the weather forecast, let's go over to our Jihan. Jihan.
Hello, Conn-young. After days of fine and ultra-fine dust in the capital area, an ultra-fine dust advisory was finally issued for Seoul, parts of Incheon and Gyeonggi-do province this morning, marking the 6th ultra-fine dust advisory for us this year. Right, I keep having to clear my throat. And while we should be enjoying the last stage of autumn, it's really unfortunate that we have to worry so much about the smog. I do agree. Now, the advisory was lifted as of 1 p.m. this afternoon. And good news, tomorrow we can look forward to normal levels of air quality across the nation. And partly sunny skies will kick off the day, but it will get cloudier as we move into the afternoon with nationwide nationwide rain forecasted midnight. And this band of showers will linger till Monday morning, and moderate rainfall is expected. So take that into account when you make your plans for this weekend. Now moving on to tomorrow's temperature readings. Daily low here in Seoul will kick off at 10 before getting up to 17. Daegu and Gwangju will see a high of 18 and 21, while Busan tops out at 19. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island should climb up to 19 and 21, while Dokdo rises to 14. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, a beautiful time for those couples. That is a broadcast on this Thursday evening. I'm Moon Conn-young. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you right back here same time tomorrow on News Center.